come on in because we need to talk about the new show on Hulu called UnPrisoned Season 1. There are 7 things that I want to break down to you guys from a licensed therapist perspective. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Keandra Jackson here, licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you're new here, hey, but if you're returning, I appreciate you for being here. Now look, we need to get into UnPrisoned because it is a spicy new show on Hulu, Season 1. Kerry Washington and Delroy Lindo, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, have a very interesting mother-daughter relationship because he has been in and out of prison her whole entire life. Now, there's so many ups, downs, peaks, and valleys into this thing. So if you have not watched this season, I need for you to press pause, go on over to Hulu, watch the episodes because they're only literally like 20, 30 minutes long, and then come back and watch this review video. You know, there's spoiler alerts all up, through, and around here. If you didn't know, this show is actually based on real life events. So if you're not familiar with Tracy McMillan, she is an MFT like me, a marriage and family therapist. She is an author, she is a TV writer, and you probably know her best from her role playing the host and the therapist on the OWN show called Family or Fiance. So this woman has been killing it, and I'm so glad that she decided to share her story. Now look, because this is based on a true story, I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all based on my perspective as a licensed therapist, but I'm also not gonna go too hard on it. And I'm not gonna go too hardcore on this because listen, nobody wants a fine-tooth comb going over on their real entire life. Now, I know she put her business on blast and we don't know which parts of her life are real, what isn't. But if somebody came into my life and dissected the relationship that I had with my dad, woo, I don't know how I would feel about that. So I'm gonna give y'all the raw and real, and I'm gonna keep it real with you as usual, but I'm also not gonna go too hard because I just don't like doing that in regards to people's real life. First thing I want to talk to you guys about, because remember, we're going over 7 things, and I don't want this video to be like 900 minutes long, so I'm gonna give it to y'all real quick. First thing that I've noticed with Kerry Washington, who is played as Paige, is that her boundaries are very interesting. On one hand, she literally says, I would never allow my father to live with me. I would never give my dad money or loan him money. She used what I call absolutes. If you've never heard of absolutes, it's what I just said, using never and always. When you say, I never do this, or you always do this, that doesn't give room for exceptions. We all know that there are exceptions to every single rule. There isn't anything on the planet that happens every single time, all day, every day. Like, you know what I mean? So there's always exceptions. So we have to be careful with our language, especially when we say that we would never do something, or somebody or something always happens. Are we really saying that it happens 100% of the time, or there's times where it might happen 99.9999999% of the time, and that means there's that little 0.01% that literally leaves room for things to happen. And with her, that 0.01% happened because she let her daddy move in with her when he got out of jail after being in a federal prison for years and years. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is daddy issues. I mean, clearly that's pretty much what the whole show is about. And one thing that I noticed very early on was that it was some type of generational trauma, not only with Paige, aka Kerry Washington, but also her dad. I knew that there was something deeper that happened to him in his childhood because of the way that he was acting when they took a trip to the South. There is some unaddressed generational trauma that happened to him when he was just a young boy, okay? I believe they said something about his mom being taken out of the house by some white police officers, and they wind up beating her in front of her kids, and just really traumatic experiences. It seems like he tried to suppress those and keep that down and say, oh, nothing, or I don't remember. I believe that's what he said. He was like, I don't really remember all the details. And it was like, oh no, you remember. You remember them deeply. You remember them very clearly. You just don't want to remember them because it brings up some not so good emotions and flashbacks that you really don't want to deal with. I also believe that this goes right hand in hand with like Black mental health, and especially Black men older Black men not really giving in and vibing with the whole, therapy situation. So we have heard him say multiple times throughout the whole season, like, I ain't really into that therapy thing, but I trust you as my daughter. Or I don't know if that therapy stuff be working, or I don't know, so we see him questioning psychology. We see him questioning therapy and its effectiveness. We see him seeing that his daughter has issues, and if she got issues, then how the heck is she helping other people as a therapist, which we're going to talk about later on as well. But to be honest with you, what I'm seeing with Paige is that she really is longing for a deep relationship with her dad that she's never, ever had. Remember, he's been in and out of prison her whole entire life, so nothing has ever been safe. Nothing has ever been consistent with him. And so now that they are much older and that she has a child and he's claiming that things are going to be different, I do believe that she wants to rework the narrative and to really see how this can work. But because she's had so many wounds, because there has been so many scars from him, because he hasn't kept his word so many times, because there's so many wounds that continue to be open, she don't trust bruh, right? I believe like on the outside, she is exhibiting kind of like this avoidant attachment style, which, I'll link up here. You guys can watch the other video that I did about the different attachment styles. But I really believe at her core, she has an anxious attachment style. It's like, I want you, but I'm scared you're going to leave me. And we see that so much when she is having conversations with her inner child, which we'll also talk about later in this video too. I think the interesting part under the daddy issues umbrella is that she also has a son. I can't really remember how old he is, but he got to be like 14, 15, 16, a teenager. And so it seems that her son wants to have a really great relationship with his granddad. And so when he moves in, they're hanging out and going places and learning different card tricks, and he's taking him places, and they're just really bonding. A major attachment to her own dad. And then he's going to do something to ruin that relationship or cause a breach. And it's going to hurt her son so bad to the point where it's just not repairable, And so I believe she's trying to protect her son. That could really be hindering him from having a really healthy attachment and a good relationship with his grandfather, period. And the interesting thing too that I noticed is that because her son doesn't have his biological father in his life, it seems like Paige's dad or his grandpa is taking on that male role model figure, right? Which every boy needs, which every person that's growing up needs. They need somebody who they could look up to, and say, okay, this is how you do this. Okay, cool. Teach me the ropes. And it's been so many funny moments, when Delroy, the grandpa, was having, these little trips, and they will be going out and bonding with Finn, who happens to be the son. And so he taught him, because he's, mixed. And so he taught him about the different head nods. I thought it was the most funniest thing. He literally said, white people nod down. He said, but Black people nod up. And I knew that. I've been Black my whole entire life. But when he said it, I said, that's true. White people do nod down like, hello. And Black people, we like, hey, yo, what's up? And I thought that was so funny, but it's so true. And I think that's a cute little way to kind of help, his grandson navigate through Black culture since he is mixed. The third thing that I want to talk to you guys about is Paige's love life. Now, sis was in a whole quote unquote semi-relationship with Bill, who happened to be a married man, and then the wife and the daughter and the whoop-de-wham didn't know about her. So she was basically the side chick, and her dad was trying to tell her that she was a side chick, but she didn't want to believe that she was a side chick. That was a whole situation, right? And we knew that Bill was not for her. We just knew. But at the same time, when Mel came into the picture, and he was the good guy, and he was showing her love, and he was showing her what a healthy, happy relationship looks like, she was pulling back. She was like, oh, hold on. She was like, I don't know if I really like him. I don't know if I'm in love with him. I don't know. And it's like, girl, let this man love you. Girl, let this man in. He wants to love all up on you. Receive it. But this goes back to the attachment that she had with her dad, which wasn't good. And so she didn't see what a healthy male role model would look like and what a healthy relationship would look like, or any of those things. So when men came into her life, listen, she was not having it. When good men came into her life, she was like, okay, well, what's the catch? Okay, because this is too good to be true. That's exactly what happens when you have an anxious attachment style. And that's what a lot of us do, to keep it 100 and to keep it real, especially when we've had so many toxic and unhealthy relationships over the past. And there was always roller coasters and good moments, bad moments, highs, lows. There was nothing really that was just like chill and status quo and just easy going. There was always either high highs or low lows. So when we have a relationship and things are going well and smooth and we're cruising and things are good and they're just leveled off, we don't know what that feels like, because that's abnormal to us. And we want to run from it because we think it's too good to be true. We think this is impossible. We think, oh my gosh, there's no way. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like there's something that has to be wrong with this person. When actuality, that doesn't always mean that, In actuality, this could be a good person for you. We just have to learn to let love in and allow it to blossom and bloom and to deal with our own stuff so it won't bleed over into the relationship. And while we're here, we're going to talk about this a little later too, but the fact that Mel is actually her father's parole officer and she was dating him, this gave me some sketchy ethics that I'm like, these boundaries are crossed. And when she broke up with him, he was in his feelings, which impacted the relationship that he had with her dad, which was his client. It's just messy. And so we want to be very careful when you are a licensed therapist to make sure that the legal aspect and the ethical aspect is always on lock, because we are not trying to lose our license over something dumb and petty. The fourth thing that I want to briefly talk about is a really cool thing that was said. She said that partner and parent is only one letter away. Partner and parent only has a one letter difference. And I thought that was so powerful, because it talks to how we think that when we get older and, go through adult relationships and romantic relationships, that we are choosing people that are super duper healthy for us and that we have the greatest mindset in the world. But a lot of this stuff really just stems from our parents, right? And so I thought that was an interesting concept, that partner and parent is only one letter different. On to the fifth thing. I could not do this review video without acknowledging the fact that when you are inside and outside of prison, things are completely different, especially for Black men. We've seen with Delvin, Edwin is his name on the show. We've seen how he had trouble getting reacclimated into society. There were so many funny moments that I seen or acknowledged when, his ex-boo sent him a eggplant emoji via text. He was like, why is she sending me an eggplant? And I'm like, bro, you don't even know what this means. She's trying to get some. So stuff like that, or the fact that he had a phone for the first time and he was like, I want a flip phone, and just was thinking about how old school phones used to be, even though flip phones are currently back in style right now, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole other day. I mean, his issues with getting a job, his issues with getting his ID, his license, his birth certificate, and even the fact that he barely knew how to work the TV. I think he was trying to turn on Netflix, Hulu, or something, child, and he didn't even know how to work the TV. So there's just so many different things that might be really, really hard for people to navigate and to get reacclimated to and adjust to when they are freshly out of jail, prison, or wherever they came from. And I would be remiss to even not mention this, but the recidivism rate that people go through when they get out of prison and jail, and because they're having a hard time doing things normal and regular and making good, honest money and all of those things, and they wind up falling into a trap, going back to their old ways, doing old habits, and then getting themselves back in jail, the recidivism rate is very high, especially for Black men. Have to acknowledge that, it is hard out here and there's an adjustment period that needs to be made. And that's why it's important for people to have a strong support system when they are outside of the walls of prison. And I know that people might be a little sketchy and be like, I don't trust that person. They might do this or they might do that. But man, we all need second chances. We all need a little bit of support. And I'm not saying be out here wilding and give give them everything and open your home to them. I mean, you have to do things with wisdom, with knowledge, and with boundaries. Now let's move on to the sixth thing. This is me talking about therapists in general. And as a licensed marriage and family therapist, just like Tracy McMillan is, and this show was based off of her real life, there are some things that I know personally as a therapist I saw in her that I want to share with you guys because you guys may not know about it either. As therapists, a lot of us, I can't say all, we are horrible at taking our own advice. We can see things in other people. We can tell you how to navigate your relationship and what to do and do this and do that and pop, 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 bam. We can see it clear. But when it comes to applying it to our own lives, it can be a little tricky. Sometimes it can be a little difficult at times. And that is something that I saw with Kerry Washington and with Paige is that, you know, she had her clients and she was encouraging them and giving them suggestions and working with them very great. But then when it came to her applying those same things to her own love life, to her own dad, to her own kids, to her own mommy issues, because we're going to talk about that next, it was like, boo boo, baby, what are you doing? And so therapists are the worst at taking our own advice. And also too, under this umbrella, typically a lot of us got into this field because of our own issues to begin with. You never heard me share my own personal story. You need to go and watch a previous video where I share just kind of what I have been through and the things that I have gone through on my own. And the driving force behind all of the things that I do, that has been the driving force behind my personal and my professional mission of helping people have healthy relationships and, you know, being passionate about mental health and all of those things. It was because of my own childhood trauma. It was because of my own daddy issues. It was because of my own mommy issues. It was because of all the things that I experienced, you know? And so that is typical for most therapists. We have our own issues because we're human. Just in case y'all didn't know, we're not perfect. And so that just allows us to just be more passionate and compassionate and empathetic for our clients and the people who go through some of the similar things that we do. So I already mentioned this, but we have to make sure that the things that we do as a licensed therapist, as far as ethical, as far as legal, are on point. We have a lot to lose. We have licenses that we work really, really hard for that are governed by our state. So this isn't just a coaching situation because coaches typically don't have a governing board that they're managed by. And if you're doing something wrong, you can get your license revoked or suspended or canceled or whatever. Typically that isn't the case for them, right? But as a licensed therapist, we have a different level of standards and there's things that we can and cannot do. So when Paige was dating her father's PO, I was like, sis, this isn't illegal, but this can cause some real ethical issues because boundaries are being crossed and he's showing up at your house and you was going to his house and then your daddy was going to his house. I'm like, how your daddy know where his PO live? Like, it was just a lot for me. And so when things are a lot, I tend to stay away from it because ain't nobody trying to lose their license over no foolery. The next thing under this therapist umbrella that I have to talk to you guys about is that I come from the school of thought that every therapist needs a therapist. I don't care what y'all say. If your therapist don't have a therapist, run. Because that means, and that tells me that they're not working on their own issues. And I'm not saying that there aren't points and times where therapists don't need a therapist, but most of us have ongoing issues just like anybody else. And most of us deal with so many other people's things, right? Like other people are dumping their stuff on us. We need to process it in a healthy manner as well. So it's important that every single therapist has a therapist. I have my therapist, baby, and I go every single week, okay? And not only am I talking about the bad stuff, but I'm also having conversation about the amazing and good things that happen. Like I just got featured in an Inc. magazine article. I'm talking about that to her because there's a lot to process on the good side of things as well. So every therapist needs a therapist, and if you have one and they don't have one, run. Also too, under this therapist umbrella, I have to talk to you guys about the flashes and the scenes where Paige is having conversations with her inner child. I thought that this was such a beautiful way to incorporate the younger self and having conversations and things that never ever get said, because you know what? That person, that little teeny tiny girl or boy that's on the inside of you, especially if you went through trauma, they need to be cared for. They need to be taken care of. There are some things that you need to be telling and speaking to your younger self that you wish you would have heard back then, or how people would have treated you back then. And it changes everything. So when they had, her younger self pop up on different scenes, and she literally looked the same way that she looked in the curtain. Like, that was the cutest thing to me. But I also noticed that they incorporated the same inner child with her dad, with Edwin, when they went back to the South, and the younger inner boy, little baby boy, came out on the inside of him. And I was just like, oh, there's just so much trauma there. There's just so many issues there. And we have to heal the younger version of ourselves to be a healthy adult version of who God created us to be. Moving on to the last and final thing, number 7. We could not talk about daddy issues in this film without talking about mommy issues, because honestly, I know that the show is about daddy-daughter, but there was so many mama wounds. There was so many mommy wounds that I was like, oh, we talking about this. The fact that Paige had like 15 different mamas was like mind-blowing to me. She literally stated that she doesn't have a relationship with her biological mother and couldn't even pick her out of a lineup. So hopefully on a future season, they dissect that a little bit more and give us a little bit more information about Edwin's relationship with Paige's mother and how she came to be and all of that, because I would love to learn more about her biological mother. Then she also talked about Carol, which happened to be her foster mother, and she painted her like an angel. Like, Carol was my saving grace. She was the best, and all of those things. And then there was Edwin's girlfriend, who seemed to have taken care of her between the ages of like 8 and 18-ish. But they seem to have a very rocky and just unhealthy relationship. And she explicitly stated that I never called her mom and I never will call her mom. So that kind of just spoke to the relationship that they had. And it seems like Paige didn't really want to go and be and live with Edwin's girlfriend, who happens to be Caucasian. And Carol, the foster mom, also was Caucasian. So there was a lot of different races and different ethnicities. And they even talked about how Paige never dated Black men growing up, and just a whole bunch of things around race that we haven't technically talked about in this video, but I think that is a really great point to mention. So let's just say Paige got some mommy issues that needs to be addressed. And this just goes back to the previous point of another reason and a layer of why she needs to go to therapy. So hopefully you found something in this TV show review useful. I'm so excited and I can't wait to watch season 2. But don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and stay connected with all of the future videos that I have coming your way regarding other movies and TV shows. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.